Jim Brawley. We meet at this time every day. One difference between the days is that on Monday we only meet for 1 hour. So usually most quarters start with a Monday, and you have a kind of introductory, first class is only 1 hour, but it's craziness that we have 2 hours on our first day. So we'll probably still get out a little early, but I feel like I have to do more than I would on the ordinary 1 hour day. So that's who I am. And our section is section B. I'll mention, I don't know, I've been advised by others to tell people that to discourage people from taking A&P and micro in the same quarter, because they're both a lot of work. On the other hand, I realize that people usually are doing their schedule according to what they need to do. People want to be in and out of here usually quickly. So, and also I have had students that excel with that, but that is a big challenge if you do that. I mean, sometimes people can do a lot. I often teach at night. There's no night class this quarter, but sometimes I teach at night, and I have women with 2 kids and a full-time job, and they come in and take A&P and micro at night and do well, because they're really organized, and they know what they have to do. So there's both of those competing philosophies. So I thought I have been advised that I should tell people, if you are taking A&P and micro at the same time, it's a lot, but I recognize some of you will be able to do it, and some of you maybe have to do it for whatever reason. So I wanted to say that. I have something to say. So a person in the class, one or more people in the class needs a note taker, and I have a script I'm supposed to read, so I'll make sure I can read it correctly to ask someone to be a note taker for this class. There are 1 or more students in our class who need a note taker as an accommodation through the Disability Resource Center. Accommodations are an essential part of success, and equal access for disabled students is required under federal and state disability laws and regulations. I need your help to make our class accessible for everyone. Many students with different disabilities may require a note taker, including chronic illness, learning disabilities, or physical mobility. By agreeing to take notes as a paid or volunteer note taker, you not only help create a more equitable and inclusive classroom experience, but also benefit yourself in multiple ways. DRC compensates note takers in one of 2 ways. We have a choice of either being paid $13 hourly or receiving volunteer hours equal to the amount of class hours. This means for a 5-credit class, the DRC would sign off on 55 hours of volunteer work. It is often the case as well that when you know you are taking notes for someone else, your own study habits improve, which can benefit your own understanding of course materials. Note takers also have a choice in how they take notes. You can take notes on a computer and upload them to the DRC's database, or you can take notes by hand and scan them into the database. It is important to me as an instructor to make every effort to assist students with the accommodation. So if you are interested in volunteering, please let me know and contact the DRC as soon as possible, as they operate on a first-come, first-served basis for signing up to be a note taker. Also, the DRC gives priority to finding a note taker from you within the class during the first week of the quarter, but after the first week, we'll begin allowing someone from outside the class to sign up as a note taker. Thank you for your help. So if anyone is interested, please let me know after class. And let's see, person who just came in. Hi.
Hi, I'm Johanna.
Okay. So, okay, as I said, we meet at 9:30 every day, and many other classes you may have had lab days, like if you took Bio 160 here, there may be lab days and lecture days. We tend to intersperse lab and lecture more in this class, And some days will be nearly all lab, and some days will be nearly all lecture. Many days we'll do some lecture and some lab interspersed, which is kind of nice. That would be a little different than what we do other places. Sometimes it's because we do something that needs to take some time. So there isn't as such, there isn't the case like Wednesday is lecture day and Thursday is lab day, which you might have in other classes. Let's say that. I will communicate with you, or we can communicate with each other via Canvas, the, what do they call it, learning system or something like that. And I imagine most of you have been here before, but some may not. And so let me know if you have any struggle with using Canvas. I tend to put a lot of stuff on the front page and not, as opposed to having you link to a lot of different things. But let me know if that doesn't work so well for you. Also, I tend to mostly look at this stuff on a desktop with a big screen. Probably a lot of you look at things on a small screen. So let me know if this kind of isn't working. And you guys should be looking for stuff on here. So I have basics here where we meet. You know that because you're here at the right time. Syllabus for the class, schedule. I'll get back to that in a minute. Office hours. So I set up these office hours. You know that's right after our class, so presumably it is a reasonable time for most people. Something about office hours, though. We're required to set certain office hours. So I think I'm required to have, because I have 2 classes, 2 office hours, and that's fine. But sometimes the result of that can be the opposite of what's desirable, in that people may think that because these are the office hours, you can't try to see me other times, okay? So you can always look for me, and especially if you want to be more confident I'll be there, you can say, I was thinking about coming by at such and such a time, okay? So don't let the requirement to state specific office hours hurt the purpose of having office hours, if you see what I mean. And S2, it's not here. So I know it's on the syllabus. So the office isn't, I'll change that, is in S240, which is the general big room with all the desks. I'll always be here at the school between my other classes at 1:30. So between when this class lets out, the 2 hours till that class starts, 2 hours Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, or the 3 hours on Monday. Okay. Books and materials required. So the text is called the Malden Notes. Diane Malden is the senior teacher here at Bellevue College, and she has produced this, the Malden Notes, which we'll use our primary text. Has anybody not been able to get that that's tried to? So that's always good. And this, again, that's our primary text. Also, to laboratory manual for microbiology, Diane Malden, that's also required. That is it's both loosely fit. This is a thinner number of pages, that's this, and this is the Malden Notes, a bigger number of pages here. And you absolutely need that. Okay. Next item is not required. It's a conventional book. As you probably know, costs of textbooks have gone through the roof, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago. You know, I hate to be like an old person that says, well, I remember it was like this. But it used to be that only like the really, really thick books were $100, and now like there's these thin paperbacks that are $100, and books cost a lot. So the students and advocates for students and the administration have asked people to stop spending, requiring so many expensive books, okay? So, and like I say, the Malden Notes was produced by Diane Malden, teacher here. And, you know, I've chosen to adopt it. We don't have to use it. It's not as slick as some thing that's produced by a major publishing house that had like 100 people read every chapter and make comments on it. So there is this book that you may want to buy as a supplemental book. I like books, so no, I like that. This is called Tolero. I'll leave it up here after class. You're welcome to look at it. So that is, I think, available in the bookstore. If not, it's certainly available online. So if you're going on to health careers, as probably a lot of you are, you may want to have a micro book like that. As I say, I like books like it, but it's, I forget what it costs now, but it's relatively expensive. So I hope I made that clear about the trade-offs there. They also have, this is McGraw-Hill, and they have supplemental stuff, and I'm not sure, it used to be if you bought the book, you got all the supplemental stuff automatically, and I don't think that's the case anymore, and I will find out more about that. Let me know if you're interested in buying the book, and the previous representative of the publisher, she used to always be around, and hey, what do you need? What do you need like this? And the people that do it now, I think she moved on to a higher up job, and other people aren't quite as helpful. So I don't talk to them as much, but let me know if you're interested in getting it. Okay, lab coats or old scrubs. So they're required. So yeah, some of you may work in hospital or something, and scrubs are fine, or lab coats. Okay. I'm going to try to be more strict is the word with that. As far as safety stuff, some safety stuff is necessary for this class, but also it's training you for certain ways to behave for when you move on to other things, so that fits in there. Goggles required when you're using the flame, as you will be using the flame, okay? If you do not have goggles, people always leave goggles around from previous quarters, so there's a bunch over on either side. You're welcome to just grab one of those and use it for the quarter, okay? Otherwise, bring your own. You'll need, for exams only, you'll need Scantrons and pencils. Okay. So again, the Tolero text is not required, but may be helpful, and we really encourage you to check that out. Okay. Link to various resources for the class. There are, you can go to the Academic Success Center. They have tutors for micro. It's good sometimes in fall quarter. There aren't too many because a lot of people leave after completing a year in the spring or 2 years, and sometimes there aren't as many in the fall, but by winter there should be enough tutors. So for all these things for health, better to go to them earlier than later. Better to talk to me about, hey, I'm struggling. Better to come earlier than later. Better to ask them for help earlier than later. Okay. Tab with link to the Academic Success Center. These next thing here, these are free online texts that, you know, whenever I looked up stuff there, I really thought they're pretty good. Sometimes a particular topic I want to learn more about, I look at it and they're pretty good. And of course, as I said, they're free, which is great. recommend checking them out. Let me know if there's any problem. I think I checked out all these links to make sure they were working, but let me know if there are any problem with any of that. Again, I want you to be aware of what's on the this home page. So this will change from week to week, and so that's what we're doing this week. Okay, I will communicate there. The rare time that I need to make a change, I'll put it there. And especially, I'll try to focus on things that need to be turned in. Okay. Noting that, we start out right away doing a lot of labs. A lot of these labs are pretty simple. So, you know, we're doing a lab today, but it's really easy. Okay? And so for tomorrow, I'm asking you to turn in a pre-lab. The pre-labs are in a bunch of questions based on that lab. They're in the lab manual. So I want you to turn them in the day we do the lab, and the purpose of that is so you're prepared, you know what you're doing, and that really helps as far as doing things well and understanding what you're doing. Okay. So I will try to always post what things are due on a given day. I will post all slides presented in class here, so they're available for you, and sometimes other things that I think my way of posting them here in this section, what's coming up and what's due. So these slides, most of the slides come from that book from Tolaro, and as such, you are not required to know anything that's only presented in the slides, but in most cases, it supports what I say in lecture and in the Malden notes. So that's that. Okay. So these things here. So this is our schedule. I'm usually pretty good about sticking to a schedule in a broad sense as far as when the exams will be. I rarely have to change an exam. Sometimes the amount of lecture we get done, that easily gets pushed back a day, or sometimes we get ahead a little bit. But as far as major things, as far as what day we do a lab, what day is an exam, I'm usually pretty good at sticking to schedules. And those are the pages in the Malden notes. I did not post pages for Tolaro figuring 1. It's pretty easy to find the pages based on topic, and also some of you, I didn't say this before, but I'll say it now, besides this relatively new 10th edition of Tolaro, you might find an earlier edition really cheap. So people have different editions, and they could be off by a page or two. So let me know if you have any problem with that. So then we have lab exercise done, Malden notes, and some topics. So we see things coming up is already no school on Monday the 21st for Martin Luther King Day. The exam 1 is on Tuesday of the 4th week. So I have 3 exams scheduled that, a little bit more about that in a minute. I think they're the 4th, 7th, and 10th weeks. They're pretty much equally spaced. And so that's the schedule, this links to that. The syllabus is a little more complex document, and some stuff we've already talked about. So this is the office location, S240. I'll move down the home page. Course outcomes, these are things that are department determined, that every teacher says, things that you're supposed to, that you will learn after having gone through the class, how outcomes will be met. Let's see. Notice it's posted on the home page. It is expected you come prepared, you come to labs, turn in assignments on time. Late assignments may be accepted at the discretion of the instructor. Exams and quizzes. There'll be 3 lecture exams and a comprehensive final. There's 13 quizzes. That's lots of quizzes. The purpose of that is not to be punitive or mean. It's more to keep you on your toes as we go through the quarter. And just an aside, I realize there's this tendency for the instructor to sound like, well, I was a perfect student and I expect you to be perfect students and all like that, okay? Well, the reason that I put up stuff like this is because, I know I'm a great procrastinator, okay? And, probably many of you are too. So the reason for having lots of quizzes is so you stay with what's going on. And also, part of it is, I know, even though you're expected to come all the time, sometimes things do happen in life, and so by getting so many quizzes, that allows me to drop the 2 lowest ones. Okay. Also, with so many quizzes and dropping 2, I don't give makeup quizzes. Okay, there'll also be a few homework assignments. You may have heard of this, we call the unknown lab. Towards the end of the quarter, it's the 8th and 9th week. So probably almost every class like this that you might take elsewhere, it has an unknown. It's a classic thing to do in microbiology. I want you to think of it as a big deal. And I know that Diane Malden calls it the lab final. But on the other hand, I don't want it to be treating it as a big deal that it should be so intimidating, okay? Unlike some chemistry lab finals or big lab tests, it's open book, open neighbor, talk to me about what you're getting. It's just, you're showing what you know how to do. You're getting 2 unknown bacteria, and you do some biochemical tests and determine what you have, okay? But don't tell me that, I decided to go to Hawaii, that week, because you can't do that, okay? It's your lab final. Little item here about the prerequisites for this. So how many of you had general biology here? So that is almost all of you. So when I teach at night, I think there's more people who might have lived in another part of the country. So that's probably good as far as being a more uniform background. So one of the problems in any class is that people all have different stories. They come from different backgrounds. One of the things about community college in particular is, I think, maybe this is true in 4-year schools as well, but I don't think it's true as much. Sometimes some people took their basic biology class last quarter or last year, but for some it's been 5 years ago or longer, or 10 years ago. And in a perfect world, we like to think that everyone remembers everything we ever had, right? And of course that's not realistic. I recognize that. On the other hand, sometimes people, it seems like they've forgotten nearly everything. So that's a struggle for me. That's one of the maybe my biggest struggle in this class, is that some people took this last quarter and remember everything, well, almost everything, and then some people may not remember very much. Recognize if it's been a while, then maybe you will have to work harder. Maybe return to your old text, and they can recommend a text for you, something like that. Okay. your own mind, check yourself. I hope you do remember the so-called central dogma of molecular biology: information flow from DNA to RNA to protein. So the proteins that you or an E. coli make are determined by genetic code in your DNA, and that information is passed through RNA. RNA code for the proteins. Proteins then do stuff, whether that's you or an E. coli. Should know how prokaryotes and eukaryotes differ. Should know what enzymes do. And remember something about glycolysis, fermentation, and respiration, those metabolic pathways. At the start of units, especially at the end, after the first exam, before the second exam, we'll talk about some of this stuff, and I'll try to go over it to a degree, but it's really not, what I'll go over is not enough if you've forgotten everything, okay? Also, you might note, if you have them all the notes with you, pages Roman numeral 1 and 2, and especially stress items 12 to 14 and 20 to 22. So, and again, let me know earlier rather than later if I'm talking about things like you should already know this, and you're thinking, it's been 10 years since I had a basic biology, so I've forgotten everything. Okay. So these are the points. Sorry that the formatting got kind of weird here for this. So 3 exams, 100 each, the finals 200, 13 quizzes worth 10 each. I dropped the lowest 2. 13 pre-labs, 5 each for 65. The unknown lab is worth 60. I'll have you do a short paper. At the end of the quarter, that's 40. Various homework, 50. So one thing, even though it's daunting to have all these things at the top there, I think that's the end. These from here down, these are all easy points to get. You can get all those points. Okay. Pre-labs, they're open book. Answers in front of you, just turn them in on time. The unknown, possibly all the points there. Paper, same thing. Various homework, same thing. So note that 20 or 15 points, that you can get all the points. You don't have to be a genius to get all those points. Okay. Okay. Grading scale. Okay, this is what you already saw on the home page. Burning atmosphere. That's really for safety reasons that we ask that everybody attend all classes. Some very low-level classes, there'll be people that are always like bored and constantly out there using their device. So not so much a problem in this class. It's expressly forbidden is any behavior that is distracting to other students. So the lecturer mentioned lab coats and goggles, and accessibility and affirmation inclusion. Please read these on your own. Embedded in this document as a schedule. It's similar to what I showed you already. Let's see, when is our final? Is on a Wednesday at our normal time. So that's that stuff. I have assignments due, like the pre-labs, there's a lot of pre-labs, especially early on. And I'll usually put an envelope out on the side bench and turn those in as you come into class. Any questions so far on all this stuff? Yes?
So will our grades be uploaded online?
Yes.
Current to the week and stuff?
Yes.
Will be, okay.
Yes. Here's something to ask you, and I never used to do this, and someone told me towards the end, it's helpful. So I guess if I typically have posted assignments only around when they're assigned and due. So some students have told me that midway through the quarter, they like to be able to project how they, if I were to get 100% on the final, what grade would I get? And I guess you can do that if I put everything on there. So is that a help to everybody? Okay, so I will do that. I haven't done that in the past. I didn't even realize that was that beneficial to students, but I'm gonna have to remember to do that. To me, it's gonna look weird when I have like, these like 30 columns in the grade book. Okay. Yes.
Do you have recommended reading for the book for women? Because I saw that I had an old note.
Yeah, for the Tolaro. I didn't prepare that because one, I thought it would be easy for you to look in the index, and also since people will be looking at perhaps getting different editions of Tolaro, like the most recent is the 10th edition, and somebody had the 9th or the 8th, and that's why I stopped doing it. But if you have any difficulty, you mean you're talking about for Tolaro, right?
Yeah.
If you have any difficulty finding what section is appropriate, then just let me know. I think it'll be easy to have that. Okay, anything else? Okay, so I will lecture briefly, and despite all these things, we're still going to get out a bit early today. So I know a lot of that stuff is kind of boring, but it has to be said, right? So reasons to study micro, and there, of course, some people might say to get a job, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But sort of philosophically as well. Let's see. So one reason is, especially if you're interested in health careers, that a lot of disease is caused by microorganisms, and by understanding them and our body's response to them, we can improve our health. And that's fairly something that's not a surprise to you, I guess. So agents of disease, things all the time. I was looking in the paper this morning, they talked about the pathogenic strain of E. coli in the romaine lettuce. Speaking of food problems, it seems that there's every year or so there's a listeria bacterium outbreak in cheese or something else like that. Also, much disease is caused by viruses. Zika virus in the news a couple of years ago and continues. You may not think of them, maybe depending on where you're from, as much, but protozoans cause a lot of disease. So the agent that causes malaria is a eukaryotic microbe. So by understanding the basic biology of all these things, that helps in public health. We can use microbes to make vaccines against those microbes. And a very general point is that all the basic science is the foundation for all the applied science, the medical science, right? Okay, so that's one thing for microbes can be agents of disease. Also, on the topic of for why we study things, microbes can be, are easy to work with. Okay, and that sounds, it's a trivial thing, but, and I always, I feel silly, saying the same jokes quarter after quarter. I'm looking at my notes. Okay, so it's easier to work with E. coli than to work with elephants as a system. Okay. But it is. Okay. In fact, so easy that you guys today in your first lab with no special training, you're going to be growing. You're going to inoculate a tube of media and a plate of media, and you're going to inoculate that with bacteria, and you're going to see bacteria grow overnight. Okay, and that's easy to work with, right? Easy to do compared to a lot of other things. Compared to, let's make a joke about elephants, but compared to working with mice or rats. And you can study a basic biologic process easily in microbes. That could be what membranes are like, or something like DNA replication. Do you know how fast, about how long it takes for E. coli under optimal conditions to divide? Someone make a guess.
Seconds?
Not quite that fast.
A few hours.
Well, that's in the range. Actually, an often quoted number, 20 minutes. So that's when they're really rich media. So, having things go fast and easy to work with, inexpensive to work with. These are all attributes for working with bacteria anyway, and also many other microbes. So because E. coli grows so fast, and other bacteria grow very fast, when you inoculate this plate today, you're going to see colonies of bacteria overnight. Visible colonies. Lots of stuff there. And that's cool that you can do that. And to recognize, it's kind of a trivial thing, but that's important. And so from one cell, in optimal conditions, you can get many cells that are enough so that are visible and form one colony. You could grow up many liters of a turbid culture, a turbid broth overnight. If we want to do various tests, like a way they test if a given chemical is mutagenic is they expose growing bacteria to it, and then the bacteria, they can do something measurable. If it changes because the genes responsible have been mutated because of that chemical, you can see that rapidly overnight. So lots of advantages. So we can use bacteria to help us understand processes that are common to all life. That doesn't mean that we can learn everything about you and how human biology from bacteria, but it helps. Okay. And a third thing is besides reasons of disease, understanding basic biology, is people for a long time have used bacteria for their own purposes. So in ancient times, going way back to ancient times, continuing to today, fermentation, production of wine, beer, cheese, it's like that. Microbes are involved in that. People have figured out how to do that for a long time. More recently, in the last 40 or 50 years, we've learned to do some tricks where we can clone genes into bacteria, put a human gene into bacteria so that we can make a lot of it, maybe change it. We can use tricks with modern molecular biology to make vaccines, to overexpress a protein from a pathogen so we can make vaccines. So another advantage of microbiology, or reason to study microbiology, is to make microbes do things for us. Okay? So I want to talk a little bit off of this tangent, go off on tangent now, and not all of what we study will be bacteria, but let's talk about bacteria. So I mentioned E. coli a minute ago, and so what do you know about E. coli? Anyway.
There's harmful versions and then non-harmful versions that we call.
Very good. Well, you said just what I was hoping that we would say. So all of you had E. coli in your gut right now. We all had E. coli. Okay. But there's also this strain, the 0157H7, that's very pathogenic. This disease. So that is in us all the time, and as such, sometimes I think people get the wrong idea. One, they hear about news stories, which, that is important. Also, sometimes you might read that they checked and found E. coli in a lake. Okay, so it's not so much that that's so terrible just because of E. coli, because if E. coli is there, who knows what else might be there? Because where does E. coli live? Largely in the intestinal tracts of animals. And so if E. coli is there, who knows what else might be there? Okay? And E. coli is easy to grow and easy to test for. So that's why people test for it. But it's not simply, there's a lot more to the story when they say they found E. coli somewhere. It's not just that it is so bad, although some versions of it are bad, but it's because if it's there, other things from human waste might be there, or animal waste. A number of years ago, when people were first working out how to do some of the molecular biology, cloning genes, propagating genes, and they'd make a decision if it was safe to use E. coli as a host for pieces of DNA. And some people said, no, you shouldn't do that because E. coli can get into people. And other people said, yes, we should do it because we know so much about E. coli. It's been kind of a cornerstone for all of for biology. So those people kind of went out. Something to think about. Also, they said that it was possible to use lab strains that were very weak and would not survive well in nature. So, on that theme, this is a slide that I made, but attitudes about bacteria. So, long time ago, and we'll talk about this today in our history, when people, before they had microscopes, you couldn't see bacteria, right? They're too small, microscopic. You can't see with the naked eye. So, didn't really know about them, so that was my first part, is ignorance. And then, beginning with they could see bacteria, and there's a so-called golden age of microbiology. People began to now see bacteria and observe what they could do, and importantly, began to associate some diseases with bacteria. Okay? So that was important, that some diseases could be associated with the bacteria. They cause a disease. Now we know today that bacteria, microbes cause some disease. Some diseases are, cancer is not a microbe, that's just our own cells out of control. Autoimmune disease is our own body attacking itself. So not all diseases are caused by bacteria or even by microbes, but a lot of them were. But anyway, people first began to learn about bacteria being causing disease, and then people kind of had the attitude that, well, we just got to get rid of these guys. These are the enemy, right? And we still see some of that where you see a lot of products say, kills off bacteria. And now, though, we have more understanding, and I'll go off on another side here. We must realize that I'm speaking now and saying people in the past were foolish. And I recognize that 50 years from now, people will say back in 2019 that, boy, those people, they were really dumb back then, right? They didn't know anything, just like we look back in the past. But now we're recognizing that bacteria are, part of the world and part of us. We all have lots of bacteria in our gut. And there's bacteria everywhere. Some of them do bad things. Some of them do demonstrably good things. Some of them are just there, and just by being there, that's kind of a good thing. So I'll give you an example, is that when people need an antibiotic because of an infection, then it kills off the bad bacteria, but also the ordinary bacteria, right? And then sometimes things that are relatively resistant, like the bacterium C. difficile, which you guys have heard of if you work in a healthcare setting, which is relatively resistant to a lot of things, then it takes over, it has less competition. Okay? So it's not that those bacteria that are normally in your gut are necessarily doing a specific positive thing, but just by being there, they're taking up space, competing for nutrients with bad guys. So there's a lot of realization of that, the whole ecosystem. This is a little different story, but one that you'll find relevant. It's bacteria as well. So, women get yeast infections often after antibiotics that kill off ordinary bacteria, less competition for the yeast Candida albicans. And then, because there's less competition, other competitors are killed off, then it can cause a yeast infection. So we're understanding more and more that sort of thing, that bacteria do some bad things, do some good things, and sometimes just by being around, they do kind of non-specific good things. Okay. That was. One major theme of microbes is that they can survive in so many environments where other organisms can't survive. For instance, some bacteria, some microbes, can live in temperatures that are almost to the boiling point of water. Remarkable. Very, very salty water. So on the one hand, bacteria don't seem very advanced. They don't compose symphonies or like that, but they can do some things that high organisms cannot, which is survive in those conditions. They've evolved to fill many niches. Some of them, as I said a few moments ago, evolved to live on humans. We kind of don't like that, but they're pretty clever to do that, right? So we've got, on us in our digestive tract, it's nice and warm, got some nutrients coming your way every now and then. You can see why they might like to live there. Or you can see, that's like isn't a very scientific term, but you know what I mean. That's why it's good for them to. So we'll look a lot at bacteria. We'll also look at other prokaryotes called archaea. Talk about them very soon. Some of them are very unusual. We'll talk about fungi as well. And we'll briefly discuss some other eukaryotes, especially in relevance to disease, for instance, protozoa. We'll also discuss viruses a little bit. Viruses are small things. Viruses are not cellular. They can infect bacteria, or they can infect us, and they can infect almost everything. Viruses are infectious agents. They can take over a bacterial cell or a eukaryotic cell and make that cell make more viruses. And again, some viruses are pathogenic. Also, historically in microbiology classes, we cover some of the human response to infection. So this is the human immune system. We go over that at the end. So that's my spiel on kind of introduction and why we should why we do like microbiology.